Algebra places a lot of emphasis on factoring things. To be honest with you, if you have a trinomial or an x squared expression or equation and you can factor it, it will save you time. But if you haven't done much with it, you're probably wondering, well, what is the point of getting something factored? The background on it is, let me give you, like, if I say that 3 times x equals 0, what does x have to be? Well, 3 times something to equal 0, x has to be 0. That's just a given. If I kick it up a notch and I say x times y equals 0, what can we conclude? We have to make a logical conclusion that either y equals 0 or x equals 0. They both could equal 0, but one of them has to be 0 in order to get a 0 answer out of it. So that being said, if we have something like x squared minus 3x minus 40 equals 0, and again, you have to know how to factor this, so if you haven't learned factoring yet, go back and watch my video on factoring a trinomial. We're going to factor this out. What times what gives us 40? We have 40 and 1, 2 and 20, 5 and 8. Which ones subtract to give us 3? It's going to be that guy. And we need the 3 to be negative, so it's going to look like this. Alright, so I got to this point. What is the big deal about that? Well, it's actually very similar to that. Y times x equals 0. We have y, one parentheses, times another parentheses, has to equal 0. So we're going to take this conclusion and apply it to this situation. We can conclude that either x plus 5 has to equal 0 or x minus 8 has to equal 0. One of these has to be true. So at this point we just say, alright, what values of x make this go to 0? Well, if x equals negative 5, that will be 0. So that's one of our answers. For this problem, what value of x will make this be 0? I'll add 8 to both sides. X can also equal 8. So if you look at these two things, here and here, if we plug those back into our parentheses, if we put a negative 5 in here, that'll give us 0. 0 times anything is 0. If we put an 8 in this one, 8 minus 8 is 0, and 0 times anything is 0. So our solutions, and you want to use these little brackets, that can be a little difficult to draw, those are our possible solutions for this equation, negative 5 and positive 8. Let's look at another one. Okay, come up with another equation. Let's say that we have x squared minus 7x minus 30 equals 0, and I want you to find the solutions for it. So the way we have it set up now, you're going to have to guess and check to get the numbers. Like, could x equal 1? I don't know. Could x equal 1.5? Could x equal negative 7? You'd just be trying values for x and plugging it in to see if they're true. So we can use the tool of factoring, which allows us to get two parentheses multiplied and set equal to 0. So let's see if we can factor this out. What times what gives us 30? We have 30 and 1, 3 and 10, and 5 and 6. Which ones subtract to give us 7? It's going to be this guy. So we have an x, we got a 10, we have an x, we got a 3. We need the 7 to be negative. So those are going to be our signs. And now what we can do from here is to find the actual solutions, solve this guy, and solve this guy. We set each parentheses equal to 0 because one of them has to be 0 for this equation to be true. So to solve this for x, we add 10 to both sides, and x will equal 10. Or, taking this one, we minus a 3 from both sides, and x will be negative 3. So the possible solutions for this is 10 and negative 3. For you guys that have studied a little bit of quadratics already, you can even take this one step further. And if you haven't really studied parabolas yet, that's okay. You can just bear with us for a minute because I'm going to do a few more examples of these. But I want to just show you that if you have done parabolas, these two values, having solved them for x, tell you the roots of the parabola. One of the roots of the parabola is going to be at 10, and the other one's going to be at negative 3. And you can kind of get a sketch. You might not know yet how far down it goes, but our parabola is going to hit those two values on the x-axis. So if you have done a little bit of quadratics, that's another reason for using the factored form. If you have something factored, they'll give you the roots, and they'll help tell you where that curve is going to hit the x-axis. If you haven't covered that yet, that's okay. You can just maybe keep that in the back of your mind. No big deal. You'll come back to it. All right, let's try another one. Let's say that we want to find the solutions. I'm going to abbreviate for x squared plus 8x minus 48 equals 0. Again, if you can factor it out, that's perfect, because then you have a multiplication of two things has to be 0, so you just set each of them equal to 0. So what times what gives us 48? We have 48 and 1, 24 and 2, 3 and 16. That's one of my favorites, so just keep that in mind. 5 dozen, and 6 and 8. Oh, and 4 and 12. There's a lot of factors of 48. So does any of these subtract to give us 8? No, 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 no. Yes, we do. So we have a 4 and a 12. Our 8 needs to be positive, so our bigger number needs to be positive and the other one's negative. To get your solutions, x minus 4 equals 0, or x plus 12 can equal 0. Solve each of those for x. X equals 4 in that case. Minus a 12, minus a 12, and x can equal negative 12. And again, to express your solution in these brackets, do like that, and shoom, there. That's not the prettiest bracket, but that's all right. There you go. Those are your solutions. All right, I'm going to put 2 up now, and I want you to write them down and hit the pause button, and then solve them in your notes, and then hit play and see if we end up with the same answer. Okay, let's see. The first one, let's do x squared plus 6x plus, let's do 8 equals 0. And this one I'm going to do a little curveball just to see how far you can get with it. X squared, let's do minus 7x equals, 30. Yeah. All right, hit pause and see if you can get those done. The first one you just want to do as straightforward as we've been doing. What times what gives us 8? We have 8 and 1 and 4 and 2. Which one adds to give us 6? We get that. The 6 has to be positive, so both of these are going to be positive. So then we set it up where x plus 4 equals 0, or x plus 2 will give us 0, minus a 4, minus a 4, x will equal negative 4. That's one of our answers. Here we minus a 2, and x will equal negative 2. So our solutions are negative 4 and negative 2. For the second one, we actually can't factor yet, and probably you noticed it as you wrote down. Something felt a little different. The 30 is on the other side of the equal sign. Well, we always have to bring anything over to the x squared side. So to do that, you just use your rules of undoing with algebra, and you minus. And again, this part here, where I minused it from here, it might feel like you need to subtract 30 from one of those numbers, but you don't, and you can't. 30 has no x's or x squareds. So you just simply rewrite x squared minus 7x minus 30 equals 0. Now we're ready to take it just like all the other problems. Set up our parentheses. Hopefully we can factor this. What times what gives us 30? We got 3 and 10. Oh, I'm going to stop at 3 and 10, because 3 and 10 when we subtract will give us 7. And the 7 has to be negative, so our larger number has to be negative, the smaller number has to be positive. So either x plus 3 has to be 0, or x minus 10 has to be 0. Here we're going to subtract 3, so x is going to equal negative 3. Here we're going to add 10, and x will have to equal 10. So our possible solutions are negative 3 and positive 10. there you go. So there's a rule. I hope you copied this in your notebook. You might want to put a big star next to that second problem, so that you remember that you have to bring the 30 over, or whatever. If there's anything else over here, you would have to bring it over to the other side of the equation before you can factor. If you need any clarifications on this, come find me and I'll see what I can do to help. Thanks.